Welcome back to Michael Cachoian Behind the Music. The year is now 2013. After 4 years of hiatus, Cachoian began prepping new songs and ideas for his forthcoming album. In order to reignite the popularity that I had in the mid to late 2000s, I decided to gear this album on parodies instead of originals. Yes, there was one original song off that album, but I felt that this was going to be the better way to compete. And for the first song, for the first idea that I thought of doing, it was a toss between I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys or Sexy and I Know It by LMFAO. And I ultimately chose I Want It That Way because Sexy and I Know It was only a few years old at the time and didn't have a lot of history behind it yet. More so now as of this video, but still not as much as the latter. The first single, entitled My Sis Is So Gay, was originally presented to Cachoian's friends in early 2013. I initially thought that it would blow. Looked at the lyrics and I was like, this isn't one of my best ideas. Then I presented it to my friends and they loved it, so I decided to make it the first single off the album. The new album was entitled Comical Jesus and took just under 2 years to complete, so it was not released until November of 2014. It was a long and enduring process, but it is also the longest I've ever spent on making a record. So I felt that it was time well spent. I had mixed it in between college and my spare time and time at home and all that, so I really thought about what I was going to make and wrote the lyrics down, made documents and all that, and it turned out to be quite the success. 3 other singles were released from the record: Player Mom, I Ain't Happy, and She'll Fuck You Not. A lot of critics originally gave a negative review for the album, saying that it was too overtly sexual and was not what you associate with Michael Cachoian. Of course, Comical Jesus is a lot different than the first 3 records or literally any other record I've ever made, which were, of course, the first 3. And I thought that in order to compete with this new wave of music, and wave quotation marks, you had to press a little bit toward the new culture. I mean, it's been seen all across pop culture since the 50s. I mean, Motley Crue couldn't compete with Nirvana. Limp Bizkit didn't stand a chance after the Twin Towers fell. And even though emo music still existed, My Chemical Romance could not compete with Lady Gaga's Meat Dress. So because of this changing economy and the new culture, I decided to make it a little bit different. And what was the weirdest part about it was that I had a lot of controversy with the title. I literally finished everything off the record. All 13 tracks were done. I just did not have a title for it yet. And I was thinking to myself, oh, well, what am I going to name this? And I'm like, well, it's a funny album, and I'm Christian, so it's kind of like a comical version of Jesus. And I'm like, oh, that's it. But a lot of people did think that it was me saying Jesus is a laughing matter and Antichrist and all that jazz. But it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference, blatantly put. The album as a whole was drastically different than Status Pending and any other record before that. Most people disdained My Sis Is So Gay due to thinking it was an anti-LGBT anthem, Player Mom being too sexual, I Ain't Happy to being his best and strongest parody, and She'll Fuck You Not being banned in most public places. When it came to writing She'll Fuck You Not, I had all the songs done but that one, and I was like, you know, this is a good record, but I need to have that single. I need to have the Tonight I'm Fucking You kind of single And that's when I came up with the idea of She'll Fuck You Not. And it basically earned me an dishonorable mention because it was featured in the Filthy 15 2015 list, which of course was the 30-year anniversary of the original Filthy 15 by Tipper Gore and the PMRC and all that. The values were posed much different than previous records in that it was, of course, overtly sexual, bared a lot of resemblance to today's music, and was often questioned during his live performances. While I can say it was the best album while I can't say it's the best album I've ever put out, I would definitely say it was an album for its time. It was one that broke some boundaries, competed with the industry in 2014, and it is now my best seller to date, for lack of a better term. And but I didn't want to continue this theme into a future record if and when I do release one. Comical Jesus was, I guess to some, just a great dream. A great way to express yourself and sing about cock or obscenities instead of the traditional hope and love. And even though it's so much more fun to sing about the latter, I personally don't want to continue with that theme if and when I do release a new album. I mean, you had a lot of songs off the record that pushed those boundaries and shocked people, including the four, of course, that I just mentioned. You also had She Loves Jews and what's another one? Stare, and that's it. You had like different things going on, but in a way I wanted to be kind of like Weird Al and combine a bunch of songs from the 1960s all the way up to the 2010s, so basically doing what it took him 30 years to do in one record, because back when he was a big artist and he was finding his way, those songs that he was creating new songs based on every record he released. And this, of course, is a lot different because I can go back 50 years and do it all together. And, of course, Weird Al has always been a major influence of mine, even well before I even thought about writing parodies. I saw him once in Port Chester, New York at the Capitol Theater in 2015. So it was about 6 months after I released the record, and I also drew some influences on the country Weird Al, who is Cletus T. Judd, and also Rucka Rucka Ali, the hip-hop version of Weird Al. I don't really like The Lonely Island, honestly. I'm not a big Bo Burnham fan either, even though he writes originals more so. But you can't deny it. Weird Al is the master of comedy, rock, pop, R&B, any of that. And he's still making records nowadays. And even when I saw him back in 2015, he had just released Mandatory Fun, which was his new record, and he did a parody of Happy in it. And I had just beat him to it 6 months before he released it. And for some of the songs like Player Mom, I did Skater Boy by Avril Lavigne. I was originally going to do Complicated, but he already did that years ago. And because Losing Grip wasn't a very well-known song by her, even though it's from that first record and was moderately successful, I wanted to pick Skater Boy as the record. But when it came as the single, but when it came to writing Comical Jesus, it was just a lot different. A lot of the song ideas came up very easily. I was able to write the songs really easily because I was like, misogyny, sexual themes, cock. I can do that in my sleep because I used to write a lot of serious stuff, And now I'm writing more lighthearted stuff and party stuff and that kind of stuff as well. When we return with our final video, we will discuss Cachoian's recent events, post Comical Jesus, and what he has been doing in the last few years when Michael Cachoian, Behind the Music, returns.